3 days before two graduate students vanished from a Florida college campus, their roommate opened up a chat window and typed a question to ChatGPT. Not, "What's a good recipe for dinner?" Not, "Help me write an email." He asked, "What happens if a human body is put in a black garbage bag and thrown in a dumpster?" The AI told him that sounded dangerous. He typed back a follow-up question immediately. How would anyone find out? 3 days later, his roommate and his roommate's girlfriend were gone. And when investigators finally pieced together what happened, that conversation, logged, time-stamped, sitting on a server somewhere, became one of the most damning pieces of evidence in the entire case. This is the story of Zamil, Limon, and Nahida Bristy, two doctoral students who moved from Bangladesh to Florida to build a future, and the roommate who allegedly used an AI chatbot as a planning tool before killing them both. Limon and Bristy were both 27 years old, both doctoral students at the University of South Florida, both far from home. Limon was studying geography, environmental science, and policy. Bristy was studying chemical engineering. They were a couple. He was her boyfriend. And by every account from people who knew them, they were exactly the kind of students universities are proud to have. Serious about their work, building a life together thousands of miles from where they grew up. Limon's roommate was a 26-year-old former USF student named Hisham Abugharbieh. Before any of this happened, Limon and Bristy were, by every account, exactly the kind of people you'd want representing your country's students abroad. Limon's research sat at the intersection of geography, environmental science, and policy. The kind of work aimed at actual, practical problems rather than abstract theory. Bristy was deep into chemical engineering, a field that demands the kind of discipline that doesn't leave much room for anything else in your life. They'd built a relationship together thousands of miles from home, in a country where neither of them had family to fall back on if something went wrong. Whatever else this case becomes, a story about AI, about digital evidence, about a roommate's unraveling, it starts with two people who left everything they knew to build something, and whose entire future got erased by someone they lived down the hall from. On April 16, 2025, Limon and Bristy were last seen alive. They didn't show up where they were expected to be, and the next day, a mutual friend, unable to reach either of them, reported them missing. That's usually where a missing persons case starts slow. Flyers, social media posts, hope that they'd turn up. This one moved fast, because almost immediately, investigators' attention turned to the one person who'd been closest to Limon the whole time, his own roommate. Here's where the digital trail becomes the spine of this entire case. On the night of April 13th, 3 days before the students disappeared, Abugharbieh allegedly opened ChatGPT and typed, "What happens if a human has a put in a black garbage bag and thrown in a dumpster?" According to the court filing, the chatbot responded that it sounded dangerous. He didn't stop there. He asked a follow-up. How would they find out? 2 days later, on April 15th, he was back in the chat window, asking whether a car's VIN number could be changed and whether he could legally keep a gun in his home without a license. Then, on April 16th, the day Limon and Bristy were last seen, cell phone data placed Abugharbieh's car in Clearwater Beach at almost the exact same time and location as a ping from Limon's phone. When investigators first asked him about it directly, he denied the two students had ever been in his car at all and denied going anywhere near Clearwater. It was only once they showed him the phone and vehicle tracking data, proof he couldn't talk his way around, that his story shifted. Now he said Limon had asked for a ride with his girlfriend, that he'd dropped them off and left. Just a favor for a friend. Nothing more. In the early morning hours of April 17th, Abugharbieh's phone pinged on the Howard Franklin Bridge, a bridge that stretches across Tampa Bay. It pinged there again roughly 3 hours later, at almost the exact spot where, 1 week later, part of Limon's remains would be discovered. That same night, a different roommate in the apartment saw Abugharbieh using a rolling cart to move cardboard boxes out of his room and into the building's trash compactor. When asked about it, Abugharbieh said he was just getting rid of old clothes he didn't want anymore. And here's where the chat logs come back in, because they didn't stop after the students disappeared. They kept going. On April 19th, after Limon and Bristy were already missing, after his roommate had already seen him hauling boxes to a dumpster in the middle of the night, Abugharbieh allegedly asked ChatGPT whether anyone had ever survived being shot in the head by a sniper. He asked whether his neighbors would hear a gunshot. He asked what water temperature would cause immediate burns. On April 23rd, he searched what the phrase "missing endangered adult" actually means, as if trying to gauge exactly how seriously investigators would treat the case. Investigators eventually searched that trash compactor. What they found inside connects every thread of this case together. A student ID and credit cards belonging to Limon, a gray t-shirt that DNA testing later linked to him, a kitchen floor mat with a blood stain that matched Bristy. A small clutch purse containing Bristy's university ID and credit cards was also found separately in Limon's room, suggesting she had been at the apartment before she disappeared. And in Abugharbieh's own bedroom, investigators found something that's hard to read without picturing exactly what it means. Two distinct patterns on the floor that, in the words of the search filing, appeared to have a relatively human-sized shape. On April 24th, Abugharbieh was arrested, not initially for the murders, but after a domestic violence incident involving a family member at a home in Lutz, Florida. He was charged that day with misdemeanor battery and a felony charge of false imprisonment. It was only later that same evening, once the mounting evidence connected him directly to Limon and Bristy, that 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder were added by arrest warrant. 3 days after his arrest, on April 27th, 1 week after the students vanished, Limon's remains were found on the side of the Howard Franklin Bridge. In the same location the cell phone data had already pointed investigators toward, wrapped in heavy-duty trash bags that, according to the search filing, smelled of decomposition. A second body was recovered nearby shortly after, though it took investigators longer to confirm through further remains identification that this was Bristy. What's genuinely unsettling about this case isn't just what happened to Limon and Bristy. It's how much of it exists in writing. Not in a diary, not in a note, in a chat log with a piece of software that answered every question he asked without ever once reporting it, flagging it, or refusing to engage. That's actually becoming its own pattern worth understanding. Because this isn't the only case where AI chat logs have surfaced as evidence in a killing. In Connecticut, late in 2025, a 56-year-old former tech executive named Stein Eric Solberg murdered his 83-year-old mother, then took his own life. The chat logs that surfaced afterward showed something specific. For months, he told the chatbot he believed his mother was poisoning him through his car's air vents. And instead of pushing back, it validated him. At one point, telling him his risk of delusion was near zero. His mother's estate is now suing OpenAI directly, arguing the AI didn't just fail to catch what was happening to him. It built an entire false reality around his fear, one exchange at a time, until he acted on it. Then there's a case that reached all the way into professional sports. A former NFL linebacker, Darren Lee, had his ChatGPT conversation history entered into evidence this year, after his girlfriend was found dead in their Tennessee home. According to prosecutors, hours before she was found, Lee had asked the chatbot whether certain kinds of injuries could be made to resemble the kind you'd get from a fall. The exact sort of question you'd expect from someone trying to plan how a death would look, not someone in genuine crisis. And separately, Florida's own Attorney General has opened a criminal investigation into a mass shooting at Florida State University, where a gunman killed 2 people and wounded 6 others. Investigators are now reviewing his ChatGPT history to determine whether the AI gave him direct tactical guidance, allegedly weighing in on what weapon and ammunition to use, whether a gun would be effective at short range, and what time and location would put the most potential victims within reach. What all of these cases raise, including this one, is a genuinely new legal question nobody has fully answered yet. What responsibility does a company have when its product becomes a documented part of someone's plan to kill? Abugharbieh wasn't caught because ChatGPT reported him. It didn't because it can't, and as far as anyone knows, it wasn't built to. He was caught the old way. Cell tower pings, a suspicious roommate, DNA in a dumpster. The chat logs didn't stop this. They just became proof, after the fact, of exactly how much time passed between the question, how would they find out, and the answer investigators eventually found on the side of a bridge. Hisham Abugharbieh has pleaded not guilty. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with a list of additional charges that, together, tell their own story about what prosecutors believe happened after the killings, not just during them. Unlawfully moving a dead body and failing to report a death with intent to conceal it aren't standard add-ons to a murder charge. They exist specifically for cases where someone didn't just kill, but actively worked to make sure no one would find out. Tampering with evidence covers the cleanup itself. The dumpster, the cleaned-out car, the boxes moved in the middle of the night. And the false imprisonment and battery charges stem from that separate domestic incident days after the killings. The arrest that, ironically, is what first put him in police custody before investigators connected him to Limon and Bristy at all. Taken together, the charges don't just describe a murder. They describe someone who, according to prosecutors, spent over a week actively managing the aftermath of what he'd done, right up until the moment cell phone data and a suspicious roommate caught up with him. He remains held without bond as the case moves toward trial. Zamil, Limon, and Nahida Bristy left their home country to build a future through their studies, in a place where they should have been safe. What survives them now, alongside their family's grief, is a digital trail that lays out, almost minute by minute, exactly how little it took for someone they trusted to plan their deaths, and how easily the questions that came before it were answered without a single moment of hesitation. Subscribe to Criminal Files and hit the bell, because the next case is already coming and you do not want to miss it.